The void above the burning colony shimmered with the wreckage of human ships, their hulls reduced to drifting shards that caught the glow of fires below. Smoke plumes bled through the stratosphere, rising like funeral banners. To the Empire's admiral, it was nothing more than a familiar spectacle, another victory secured with routine precision. Admiral Vare leaned back in his command chair, angular features catching the cold gleam of the flagship's displays. His voice, precise and controlled, carried a weight of practiced indifference. Another colony reduced. Another defiance extinguished. Tell me, do they ever tire of the same futility? The bridge crew chuckled dutifully. One officer, scales reflecting the dim glow of burning cities on the holoscreens, smirked. If their species had imagination, Admiral, they wouldn't still be using ships welded together like salvage scrap. Vare permitted himself a dry smile. Scrap, yes. But persistent scrap. Irritating in its way. Like weeds, they sprout from every rock we scorch. He tapped a clawed finger against the armrest. The Council will want another demonstration. Something to remind the outer systems of the price of sympathy. Beneath them, the colony's defense grid sputtered its last, weak pulses against an overwhelming tide. A scatter of resistance ships attempted to flee, their trajectories easily tracked and eradicated. Vare barely glanced at the tactical feeds as each human vessel winked out. The Empire's might was absolute, and humanity's resistance was theater at best. To Vare, the humans were not enemies. They were chores. Yet, for all his detachment, he did not miss the weariness creeping into his bridge officers' voices. Years of putting down rebellions, incinerating worlds that offered little sport, and crushing resistance that never truly challenged them, had dulled their victories. The conquest of Earth's colonies was beginning to feel like stamping on ants, necessary but boring. One officer stifled a yawn before speaking. Orders from High Command are to move on the sole frontier, Admiral. Intelligence claims another cluster of human settlements there. They lack military value, but the Council wants symbols. Vare finished the thought with a faint curl of his lip. They want Earth itself demoralized, gutted of hope. A ripple of amusement passed across the bridge. The thought of Earth, a backwater ball of mud and ocean, struck them as laughable. Vare let the moment linger, then rose from his chair, cloak shifting with his movements. Prepare the fleet. If Earth is their cradle, then breaking its children will break their spirit. No one questioned the decision. No one considered the possibility of danger. Humanity had never once surprised them. The transition into soul space was smooth, the fleet emerging in disciplined formation. Earth itself hung distant, blue and serene, surrounded by the faint glimmer of satellites and stations. What surprised the crew was not what they saw, but what they did not. Minimal defenses detected, reported the tactical officer. A scattering of outdated platforms, no fleet signatures of note. Vare arched a brow ridge. No fleet, not even token resistance. None, Admiral. Long-range scans suggest several colonies in this system, but communications are quiet. The quiet was wrong. Even under the boot of inevitable defeat, humans screamed. They cursed, rage pleaded. But here, in their home system, there was only silence. Vare's gaze lingered on the blue planet in the distance. His instincts, honed over decades of command, prickled. Deploy the secondary wings. Sweep every moon, every station. I want confirmation that this silence is incompetence, not design. His crew obeyed, but the unease grew. Reports trickled in, colonies abandoned, stations stripped clean, transmissions looping emptily on automated cycles. As if humanity had packed up and vanished. On the bridge, a murmur spread. Admiral, it feels staged. Vare silenced the whisper with a glance. Theatrics. They think absence will unsettle us. Record every facility, every derelict. The Council will want proof of their cowardice. But as hours passed, the emptiness pressed heavier. Humanity's cradle system should have been a hive of resistance, a desperate last stand. Instead, it felt deserted, like walking through a house where every door was open, but no one lived inside. The Admiral finally broke the stillness with a command. Bring us into Earth orbit. If they have fled, we will burn their home to ash. It will make no difference. The fleet slid into high orbit. Earth filled the displays, a quiet sphere untouched by visible war. Its surface gleamed with oceans and continents, but no defensive networks lit up, no fleets rose in protest. It was infuriating in its passivity. Vare's voice dropped, a sharp edge cutting through his earlier calm. I want a full spectrum scan. No assumptions. If they are hiding, we will drag them out. The tactical officer obeyed, fingers flicking across the control surface. Readouts cascaded across the holoscreens, endless lines of planetary data. For several long minutes, nothing unusual registered. Then, Admiral, the officer's voice cracked, there's something beneath the crust. The bridge fell silent. I turned toward the central feed, where the scans began to refine. Buried deep below the planet's surface, far beyond the reach of ordinary excavation, something stirred. A power signature immense enough to distort their sensors pulsed faintly, steady as a heartbeat. Vare leaned closer, voice low. What kind of installation? The officer swallowed. Not an installation, Admiral. It's a ship. A warship. Larger than any we've cataloged. The laughter that had filled the bridge hours earlier vanished. What replaced it was a silence thick with something Vare had not heard from his crew in years, doubt. The Admiral's gaze locked on the trembling readings. They wouldn't dare. Yet as the sensor sharpened and the power signature grew stronger, the truth became undeniable. Something vast was awakening beneath the soil of Earth, something old, something designed not for defense, but for annihilation. For the first time in decades, Admiral Vare felt his confidence fracture. Humanity had been silent for a reason. The holoscreen pulsed again, brighter this time. The officer whispered, as though speaking louder might provoke it. Admiral, it's powering up. The Admiral stared down at Earth, that unassuming blue world, and felt the faintest trace of unease slip into his chest. Humanity had not fled. Humanity had been waiting. Would you like me to keep the entire section 1 at around 1,200 words? This draft is 180 words, or should I expand certain beats, like the Admiral's arrogance, the eerie emptiness of soul, or the crew's shifting morale, to bring it closer to the word cap exactly? The planet trembled as if it were exhaling after centuries of restraint. From deep within Earth's crust, something immense shifted, pushing against stone and magma with mechanical inevitability. Seismic alarms rippled through the alien fleet, their displays flashing warnings that made no sense. The crew stared at readouts in disbelief as the dormant shape began to emerge from under the oceans, throwing waves the size of mountains across entire coastlines. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Vare gripped the arm of his chair. His voice, normally precise and unshakable, carried a tremor he despised. Identify it. The tactical officer hesitated, scales paling. It's a warship, Admiral. Human construction, though not like anything in their known catalog. Dimensions massive. Energy output exceeds even our capital dreadnoughts. Vare's second-in-command leaned forward, disbelief etched into every word. That's impossible. Humans don't have the industrial base. They couldn't. The words died as the ship fully breached the ocean's surface. Water cascaded off its hull like waterfalls, hissing into vapor as invisible fields repelled the pressure of Earth's atmosphere. It was monstrous, a dark leviathan shaped not with elegance, but with brutal purpose. Its angles were sharp, its plating unadorned, as though beauty had been discarded in favor of raw survival. And in that brutal design, Vare saw something he had never expected: fearlessness. The human ship rose higher, towering above Earth's oceans, engines awakening with a bass hum that reverberated through the alien fleet. Vare's instincts screamed that he was no longer the predator circling helpless prey. Something had shifted. On Earth's surface, in a hardened bunker carved beneath the Appalachian Mountains, General Elias Ward watched the awakening of the warship on towering screens. His face, lined from years of service, betrayed neither joy nor fear, only grim inevitability. Around him, younger officers murmured prayers, curses, or simply stared in silence. Ward broke that silence with a voice calm and steady. She's awake. The ship was no ordinary vessel. It was the Leviathan prototype, a relic of Earth's darkest years when desperation had driven humanity to gamble everything on untested technologies. It had been buried when peace treaties rendered it unnecessary, sealed away with the hope that it would never be needed. For generations, it had been forgotten by the public, remembered only by the shadows of Earth's military. Until now, one of Ward's aides, a woman barely 30, asked the question that hung heavy in every heart. Sir, what if it's not enough? Ward's gaze remained fixed on the ascending warship. Then humanity dies fighting. But I think our enemies will find we are not as fragile as they believed. The Leviathan's engines roared, and the oceans churned like boiling cauldrons. Within moments, the ship's weapons came alive, arrays sliding into position, hull plates unfolding like the wings of some mechanical predator. Its first volley came not with spectacle, but with merciless precision. A beam of energy, narrow and blinding, lanced through space and sheared an alien cruiser in half. The vessel had no time to maneuver, no chance to raise shields. It simply ceased to exist. Silence filled the alien bridge, broken only by the captain's horrified whisper. It fired once. A second shot followed, then a third, each as calm and deliberate as a butcher's knife. Every strike claimed a ship, no wasted effort, no grand display of light. The alien fleet, disciplined and vast, had been designed to overwhelm through numbers and intimidation. But against this awakening predator, their numbers meant nothing. Vare barked for evasive formations, for counterfire, for something, anything, that would stem the assault. Yet as his fleet obeyed, more ships died. The human vessel moved with unnerving grace, its weapons shifting faster than alien computers could predict. It was not firing wildly. It was hunting. And somewhere within that hunting, Vare sensed something deeper: patience. The bridge crew's earlier arrogance was gone, replaced with tight voices, hurried motions, and eyes that refused to meet the admiral's. The silence from Earth's surface, once mocked as cowardice, now pressed upon them with suffocating weight. Humanity had not been hiding because it was afraid. It had been waiting because it was ready. Back in the bunker, Ward's officers scrambled with incoming reports. The Leviathan was exceeding all expectations, operating flawlessly despite its age. Every system seemed not merely functional but evolved, as though the centuries of silence had been preparation for this very moment. One younger officer asked almost reverently, "Sir, did we plan for this exact outcome?" Ward allowed himself the faintest of smiles. "We planned for worse." Above, the Leviathan shifted its trajectory, its hull glimmering faintly as it shed the last of the ocean. Alien weapons finally answered, emerald lances striking its armor, detonations lighting Earth's sky. For the first time, the ship absorbed the fury of an empire. When the explosions faded, it remained. Its armor bore scars, but its engines thundered on, undaunted. Then it retaliated. The Leviathan launched swarms of projectiles, smaller than missiles yet faster, darting through space with surgical precision. Each found its mark. Alien destroyers exploded silently, ripped apart in eerie synchronization. Within minutes, dozens of ships were gone, their deaths marked by spreading fields of debris. Vare's composure cracked. His voice rose, strained with anger that barely concealed fear. How long have they hidden this? How long have they deceived us? The answer came not from his crew, but from Earth itself. A transmission cut through the jamming fields, projected onto every alien vessel. General Ward's face appeared, his eyes steady, his words measured. "You thought the colonies were our strength. They were distractions. You thought our silence meant surrender. It was patience. You thought us fragile. That was your mistake." He leaned forward, voice a calm blade. "You came to our home. Now you face what we built to protect it." The transmission cut, leaving only silence. For Vare, that silence was worse than any taunt. Humanity had spoken without anger, without desperation. It had spoken with inevitability. The Leviathan moved again, its engines tearing through the void, its weapons exacting toll after toll. For every volley the Empire returned, it lost twice as much. The fleet, once so certain, began to fracture. Crews panicked. Formations broke. Discipline bled away under the pressure of surgical annihilation. Vare gripped the railing, his claws digging into metal. He knew battles, he knew fear, but this was something different. This was watching inevitability take form. The Leviathan fired once more, and the flagship's shields trembled under the impact. Sparks rained across the bridge. Officers scrambled to their stations, alarms shrieked, and Vare's breath came ragged. He realized, with a clarity that sickened him, that the war had shifted in a single moment. The Empire had not simply underestimated humanity. It had awoken them. And as the Leviathan's silhouette blotted out Earth's horizon, Vare whispered words he had never thought possible. "We are prey." The section closes with the human warship turning its guns toward the heart of the Empire's fleet, engines glowing brighter than the sun, leaving no doubt that the conflict had only just begun. The aftermath of the battle left space littered with drifting wreckage, an orbiting graveyard that gleamed in the light of Earth's sun. Admiral Vare stood in the observation chamber of his damaged flagship, the distant reflection of burning hulks etched in his eyes. Hours had passed, yet the silence of his bridge weighed heavier than any bombardment. His officers avoided his gaze, their earlier arrogance reduced to a brittle silence. He replayed the encounter over and over, searching for logic where none existed. Humanity had hidden a monster beneath its homeworld, an abomination that fought with precision no Empire tactician could have predicted. That alone was unsettling, but the Admiral's unease went deeper. The Leviathan had not fought like a desperate species defending its last refuge. It had fought like a predator executing a long-practiced hunt. In his quarters, Vare activated a secured archive. The holograms flickered alive, showing stolen fragments of humanity's history, wars fought on Earth's soil. He watched armies charge through mud, soldiers advancing into firestorms of artillery, fleets of primitive steel ships hammering each other into twisted ruin. The faces haunted him most, not the fear, but the stubborn resolve, even smiles in the midst of slaughter. They bled, but they never stopped. He whispered to himself, voice hollow, "You've always been this way. War is your inheritance." The door chimed, pulling him back to the present. His second-in-command, Captain Rav, entered with a tight posture. "Admiral, the High Council demands a report. They do not accept our account. They claim exaggeration." Vare's jaw tightened. Exaggeration? They saw the recordings. "They believe it is propaganda," Rav said carefully. "They insist a primitive race could not have developed such a weapon without outside interference. Some on the Council suggest fabrication by rival empires." Vare's anger flared. "Fools. We faced it. We bled. Half our fleet reduced to ash, and they think of fabrication." His voice broke with the weight of suppressed fear. "They do not understand what we have awakened." The council session convened through projection, their grand chamber materializing in the air. Dozens of leaders appeared, robed and radiant, their voices layered with disdain. One dismissed the encounter outright, an isolated anomaly. Even if the humans possess this construct, it is a relic. One ship cannot threaten the Empire. Another leaned forward, eyes narrow. "Admiral Vare, your failure reeks of cowardice. You suggest that a single human vessel achieved what no coalition has managed in centuries." Vare held their collective gaze, his voice steady but laced with steel. "I do not suggest. I report. The Leviathan is not just a ship, it is a doctrine. It is a weapon designed to teach us terror. And it succeeded." The chamber erupted with protests. Some mocked him, others demanded evidence. Yet a few voices trembled with the weight of his warning. The council fractured, half blind with arrogance, half quivering with unease. When the projection ended, Rav lingered. "Admiral, what if they are right? What if it is only one?" Vare turned back to the wreckage beyond the viewport. "If it were only one, humanity would not have hidden it. They are not wasteful. If one exists, more will follow." He drew a ragged breath. "And I fear they need only one to unmake us." Across the void, the Leviathan had not pursued. It hovered in Earth's orbit, watching, its silence heavier than 1,000 threats. General Elias Ward stood in its command deck, surrounded by officers who waited for his word. Unlike the alien fleet, his command center was quiet not from fear, but from discipline. Ward's eyes traced the displays, showing retreating enemy signatures. "They will come again," he said evenly. "Pride will not allow them to leave unanswered humiliation." One officer clenched her fists. "Let them come. We have the Leviathan. We'll gut them." Ward's gaze shifted, calm but sharp. "Victory is not found in arrogance. The Leviathan is not invincible. We do not rely on one ship. We rely on our preparation, our unity, our will. Remember that, or we will be no better than the Empire we fight." His words tempered the room, yet a question hung unspoken. How long before humanity revealed the full scope of its secrets? Ward did not answer. Some truths were not meant for his officers to bear. Vare, in the solitude of his chamber, stared at the final recording of the Leviathan's emergence. The image seared into him, the ocean splitting, the mechanical titan rising, not with desperation but with inevitability. It had been waiting, patient, buried beneath the world that birthed it. He realized then that humanity had turned its silence into a weapon. While the Empire grew complacent, they had sharpened themselves. And now, the sharpened edge was pressed against the Empire's throat. The thought sickened him, but it also kindled a strange clarity. The Empire he served was blind, too arrogant to heed warning. Which left him with a choice: cling to their arrogance and perish, or prepare for the storm he knew was coming. Rav found him hours later, standing rigid, voice low. "We are not facing prey, Captain. We are facing a predator older and hungrier than we ever imagined. If the Council will not listen, then we must." Rav hesitated. "And if we stand alone?" Vair's answer came, without hesitation. "Then we survive long enough to watch them fall." The Leviathan's shadow stretched across Earth's surface as it turned slowly, its guns reorienting toward the stars. It did not fire, not yet. It only waited, and that waiting spoke louder than any barrage. It promised that the war had shifted, that humanity was no longer defending. They were preparing to strike. And as the alien admiral watched from afar, dread hollowed his chest. For the first time in his long career, he understood the true meaning of fear, not of defeat, but of inevitability. Humanity was not rising. Humanity had been rising all along. The Empire simply hadn't noticed. The Empire's fleet assembled near its capital world, a gathering of steel and arrogance meant to restore shattered pride. Hundreds of warships formed into precise wedges, their engines blazing like a wall of fire across the void. To the Council, it was proof of control, a demonstration that one anomaly could not shake centuries of dominion. But to Admiral Vair, standing in the hollowed quiet of his command deck, it was a funeral procession waiting to happen. He had seen the Leviathan in motion, seen how one vessel tore through formations that should have been impregnable. The Council's pageantry meant nothing. They were sending thousands of lives into a furnace they did not comprehend. Across the gulf of stars, the Leviathan emerged from a wormhole, its dark form gliding into the enemy's vision. Silence stretched, taut as wire. No taunts, no declarations. The ship simply existed, and its presence crushed the Chamber's confidence. Every officer in the Empire's fleet had heard whispers of the battle at Earth, and now they stared at the living proof. Fear bled through the ranks like poison in water. General Elias Ward stood on the Leviathan's bridge, hands clasped behind his back, eyes sharp but calm. His officers were tense, every system lit, but Ward's voice carried with unshakable steadiness. "They believe numbers will save them. Let us show them precision." His order was simple, unadorned, yet final. The first salvo struck without warning. Blinding beams cut into the Empire's vanguard, reducing entire destroyers to fragments in seconds. Coordinated drones swarmed from the Leviathan's launch bays, weaving impossible patterns as they shredded fighters before they could form a defense. The Empire's wall broke, not in minutes, but in breaths. Panic rippled through the enemy fleet. Commanders barked contradictory orders, formations collapsed under their own confusion. Ships collided in desperate attempts to evade. Amid the chaos, Ward's crew moved with eerie composure, each adjustment executed with clockwork precision. The Leviathan did not boast in its firepower, it dismantled with surgical inevitability. Admiral Vair's voice cracked as he tried to hold his fleet together. "Focus fire. Pin it down before it divides us." But his words rang hollow, swallowed by the growing certainty that nothing could pin the monster now stalking them. Every strike against the Leviathan only scarred its hull before it retaliated with ruin. The battle spiraled into massacre. Capital ships detonated one after another, blossoms of fire painting the void. The Council's war anthem, once transmitted proudly, faltered mid-chorus as transmitters burned away. Soldiers screamed over comms, voices raw with disbelief. "It cannot be killed. It will not stop." In the Council chamber, leaders watched through live feeds as their greatest armada dissolved. Those who had mocked Vair now sat pale and silent, words stripped from them by the sheer scale of collapse. Their empire, once the hammer of the galaxy, was breaking before their eyes. Ward's officers reported the obvious. Enemy morale fractured. Dozens of ships fleeing. Thousands surrendering. Ward studied the collapsing formation, but there was no triumph in his face. Only resolve. Accept their surrender. Kill only those who continue to fight. "We are not here for slaughter, we are here for certainty." His voice cut through the bridge, like steel. "The galaxy will not mistake us for butchers, but they will never forget what we are capable of." The Leviathan pressed forward, its shadow blotting out the Empire's capital. Planetary defenses lit the skies with desperate fire, but every volley was absorbed, neutralized, answered. Within hours, the world lay silent under the Leviathan's gaze, its government forced into submission by inevitability. Admiral Vair stood on the shattered deck of his flagship, smoke curling through ruined consoles, his crew either dead or broken. A transmission filled the bridge. General Ward's face appeared, resolute and cold, his eyes piercing even through the static. "You fought with pride," Ward said quietly, almost respectfully. "But pride has its limits. Your empire falls today, Admiral, not by choice, but by the weight of its arrogance." His tone softened, though it carried no pity. "I offer you survival. You will serve as liaison between your people and ours. Or you can die here, clinging to a corpse." Vare, beaten but unbroken in spirit, lifted his gaze. He saw no mockery in Ward's face, no cruelty. Only inevitability. He bowed his head, the gesture heavy with shame and reluctant acceptance. "I will serve," he whispered, though the words scorched his pride. The war ended not with celebration, but with silence. Humanity did not sing, did not revel. The Leviathan anchored above the fallen capital, its dark hull reflecting the fires of an empire undone. On Earth, survivors mourned lost colonies, families wept, and leaders shouldered the burden of a future that had shifted forever. Ward stood once more in the Leviathan's command deck, staring into the stars. "We never sought this war," he said to no one in particular, though his officers listened with reverent silence. "But it was forced upon us. Now they know. We are not prey. We are not fragile. We are patient, and when patience ends, we do not pretend to be civilized." The bridge remained silent, the words sinking deep. As the Leviathan powered down its weapons, its shadow stretched across the capital world, a constant reminder of what humanity had revealed. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same again. What had been forgotten was now awake. And somewhere in the depths of space, whispers began to spread, not of humanity's fragility, but of their inevitability. The final truth lingered, unspoken but undeniable. The Leviathan was only a prototype.